Reverence, Part 2. Delta quickly looked around before his hoof tapped the floor. Perking up, he did it again, looking down as he felt how hollow the rock was. Widening his eyes, he concentrated his magic to his horn and threw it down, smashing the floor and taking the elements of harmony down into a freefall. It wasn't long before they hit some measure of land. The inside had platforms of its own, and some extended like narrow bridges to the other side of the interior. Every pony managed to recuperate and start their descent downwards. As they went, holes were punched in all over the walls, the army outside trying to force their way in. The way in from above was blocked, given the cave-in piled up on the platforms before the hole, so this bought the crew a little more time. As they were about to reach the bottom, Hematite's claw came bursting through, nearly snatching up Pinkie Pie had it not been for Applejack biting down on her tail in order to hoist her up out of its reach. Delta grimaced as the situation was getting worse. Magic shots were being blasted through the holes made by ponies outside, and Hematite could practically sniff them out with pinpoint accuracy. Looking to the side, he dove down with Rainbow, landing on a bridging rock formation with Twilight. Seeing the shadow of the claw coming from the hole, he ducked down after tossing the cyan mare up so that she could fly from the incoming obstacle. Delta kept Twilight down as Hematite's claw brushed past them after bursting in, setting back up as it was ripped back out. Fuck! Fuck! Shit. He looked around at all the others as they continuously avoided the barrage, growing exhausted by the second. This couldn't go on for much longer. Delta knew this. Alright, that does it. Twilight, get every pony out of here!
What?
Delta climbed up onto another platform. I'll distract them long enough for you to make an escape.
Wait, what? Are you crazy? They'll kill you!
It's you that they want! I can use a transparency spell that I learned a while ago to create holograms of you and your friends. I can lure them away for a short time, but you have to hurry out of here and get to Canterlot. The only pony with more military authority than them is Princess Celestia. He shook his head, growling under his breath. Just take care of your friends, Twilight! He made to climb up again.
I intend to!
He was dragged down back to the platform by Twilight yanking on his tail.
All of my friends! There's gotta be something that we can do!
There's no time!
Delta!
Twilight's face reeled to the side as the noises outside were slightly muted. She put a hoof to her reddened cheek as she turned back to Delta, seeing him glaring at her. Listen to me, and listen, good Twilight. Ever since we took you into the group, you've been looking out for yourself. You used me and the others to forward your own agenda. It's high time you learned one last friendship lesson from your old pal, Delta. He lessened his glare as the two sat there, panting as Delta frowned. You've looked after yourself long enough. It's time you start looking out for others. He pointed out one of the holes, back towards the town. Go, Twilight. You still have a lifetime of mistakes to amend, while I've already made peace with my sins. You'll be safe once these ponies are off your scent for good. A rumble shook them for a moment before they turned back to each other. Twilight's eyes watering as Delta took a step back, turning and climbing upwards again.
Delta.
He looked back down at her as he made it up. I'm so sorry. I really am.
I know.
He looked ahead, seeing a hole that he could dive out of. I know. Igniting his horn, Delta raced forward, using the transparency spell to create the holograms of the main six as they jumped through, the mirrored images following suit. Sliding down the side of the mountain and steadily cruising towards the ground, he warded off as many of the con and liver ponies as he could, rushing through the thick brush and dangerous settings of the Everfree. As per to his plan, the army was now following him, Hematite included. He had ignored his nose for his sight and was stomping after Delta with the hundreds of ponies swarming ahead of him, as Delta kept running. Twilight and the rest of the group jumped out of the holes in the side of the mountain facing away from the chase. Keeping themselves in low profile, Twilight was the last to come out, and instead of following Delta's orders, she crawled up to the side of the mountain, looking around it to watch. The other elements joined her as Delta reached a clearing that they could see, dismissing the transparency spell as he focused all of his remaining power on retaliation. Twilight huddled in on herself as tears streamed down her face. She had not been there 12 years ago when the other 17 of her old friends had perished by these 2 crime syndicates. But sitting there, watching one of the 3 survivors fight a hopeless battle, made it feel like she was watching those 17 fade from her eyes.
Come on, Twilight.
Applejack pulled back on her.
We should get a head start. We don't want to be here when they get done with him. Let's make it so that this weren't for nothing.
Twilight swallowed down a lump in her throat as Applejack gently pulled her along. Rarity did the same, nudging Twilight along as they made their way back to Ponyville. As Twilight flew alongside Fluttershy and Rainbow, she glanced back, seeing the last of her former friends fight. Delta grunted as 2 shots hit him from the front, making him stagger backwards a bit as he fired back into the foliage, wiping out the 2 unicorn mercenaries. Lowering his front body, he brought his hind legs and snapped the jaw of a Con Pegasus swooping down at him, turning around and putting him into the dirt with a hoof stomp. Seeing an Earth Pony coming his way, he readied himself to fire his magic once more, but got tackled before he could even light his horn. There, on the ground, was where he was truly pinned in his final moments. The army was on top of him, piling onto his every direction like a collection of angry wasps coming in for a nasty sting. He had managed to kick off a few, though one had been lucky enough to strike him in the forehead, chipping off his horn. As more came down and held him to the ground, a rogue guard readied his spear, and put it through his chest. Twilight could practically feel a physical sharp pain go through the front of her barrel as the magical connection that she shared with Delta was severed. Given that friendship entailed magic, there was a connection every pony felt when becoming friends. And when one friend passes away, those who were close feel it. Panting out as she held Pinky in her grasp, she crash-landed in Canterlot right in front of the castle. Her heavy breathing caught the eyes of her fellow elements, whom checked her to see if she was okay. Other than the never-ending tears and shame that she felt, she was unharmed. But that didn't stop the pain of failure from edging deeper into her heart. She had not made amends with her past. She had done little to try and move on. The sins that stain her hooves forever remain, and there was nothing that she could do now to rid herself of it. All she could do was lie there in the dirt and cry. Blazedawn looked over her 2 foals as they slept peacefully within their crib, sharing a little teddy bear their father had given them. It was adorable how the little ones incorporated the nature of trust and loyalty to friends, just like the group had. It was enough to make her smile, but as she looked up at the window and stared out into Silver Shoals, she knew what the pain in her chest meant. The connection between her and her husband had been severed by death. Her expression slowly fell as she turned and trotted over to the window, looking up at the moon as tears welled up in her eyes. In her mind, she wanted to berate her husband for being such a fool. But she remembered his words from the moment he left. This was the plan. Delta was telling the truth. She had made it. She had got out of the dirty business they'd involved themselves in for 7 years. But he didn't. And the only way out was a sacrificial redemption. It was a cliché move to play, but it was his. And his fate was sealed and fulfilled, even if he would never be recognized for it. Despite all that he would be leaving behind, all that he abandoned to uphold the group's final principle, nothing had gone wrong. And as he said, he was not coming back. His sins were elated, and his half a decade of turmoil and restless anger had now been quelled. For him, it was time. And knowing that every pony that remained was still alive and can move forward, his move had meaning. And for that, it was enough. He could finally lower his horn, lay down his hooves, and he could finally rest in that peaceful victory he'd longed and dreamed for.
I never even got to have sex with him one last time.
That's not part of it either. But I love to put it in there because it's something that you don't expect. Well, maybe you can expect it from me. Anyway, I'd love to give a very special thank you to my brave donators. Top donator, Dash of Evergreen, Peter Coulthard, Dresdon, Dospo, RuneScythe9852, CourierCruz CI, Delta Omega, Ryanny Dragonwolf, Dwight Cornel, Gagi, Secret Moon, Tal Rasha, Starlight Glimmer, David D. Sanchez, Trey, Pokekiller Zach, Soul Dragon, Dak Britton, and Joe Piercy. Thank you all very much for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one.